Good idea.
All right, we are live. Hello, I am Melinda, and this is Shayla. I am Melinda. I'm the hostess of Hope When There Was None, and we are coming to you today to discuss shelters, okay? In particular, crisis centers for those that need them, abuse victims, and what goes with that. There's a little bit of a stigmatism with that. I know you and I discussed that personally about that. There being just a little darkness with that, with what's involved with going into a shelter. So I want to share information from various shelters around the U.S. and across, maybe even abroad too. So this is something new, and I'm happy that you're my guest today because I just love you to bits. You are an amazing, inspiring person, an advocate there at the shelter. So why don't we start with, okay, let's start out with first things first. I know many women are definitely, of course, afraid when they call, and they might ask, "Well, what happens when I call, and Well, first of all, what do I expect when I phone in? And then, second of all, if I have children and I'm worried about my abuser taking those children away, what steps or how has that worked?"
Okay. So I think a lot of people get really nervous about just the idea of what a shelter actually is, and that it's like, oh my gosh, it's like this dooming thing, and it's brick walls and we're just gonna sit around and make you do a bunch of stuff. But it's not like that at all. It's very comfortable. We have a very small office and we're in a house. So we're not in this big, gigantic building. We're just in a house where it feels homey. The kids can run around and play. We just kind of hang out there and we try to make it as comfortable as possible. So when somebody calls in, it's very relaxed. We're all just kind of sitting in the office together. There's only a few people on staff during the day and usually only one person at night. And so we just, we usually say, "Crisis Center, how can I help you?" And we'll try to help people talk through what it is that they're needing, explaining the shelter services, letting them know that it's okay to not really know what to say. It's okay to, not really understand what's going on or not know which direction you want to go. Because some people aren't always ready to leave. Some people aren't always looking for shelter. And a lot of people think that just by calling the shelter, that means you have to come there and stay. And that's not the case at all. We can offer the same services to people outside of the shelter as we can inside of the shelter. So it's very comfortable. Kids usually have not a hard time adjusting other than just the normal, why aren't we at home type of thing. But for the most part, we have tons of toys. We have, a TV for them to watch. And we do things with them to help them feel more relaxed and comfortable and make it more like their home. But a lot of people, when they call, women in particular, because we do service men, but most of the time when we get calls from women who have children, they will say things like, my abuser, my husband, will tell me, "If you leave, I'll keep the kids because DCS will take the kids away. You're taking them out of their home. So that means they're going to take them away. You can't take our kids to a shelter." And so a lot of women are fearful that I'm going to lose my kids. If I leave this environment, they're going to take them away from me. And that is not the case at all. We work very, very closely with our local DCS office, and they are wonderful. They encourage people to come to our shelter. We have a referral program with them because they know that even if you're not staying in the shelter, even if you just need outreach services, they want people to just be able to heal and to feel safe and to feel supported. And so that's what all of us are about, is just making sure that they feel safe and that they're not living in a toxic environment. So it's just, most of the times the kids usually don't have a hard time adjusting. Sometimes moms are like, wow, they went from being so good and calm the first day and now they're back to their wild and crazy self. And I tell them that's good because that means that they're comfortable and that's how we want them to feel. So.
Oh, that's awesome. And you bring up two things that just came to mind. First off, programs. What programs do you offer to your guests and those that are outreach, or what do you call those that don't stay? They're not still guests. I don't know what the term is for.
We call everyone client.
Everybody's a client. Okay.
Yeah, client. And then, just like the doctor, patient.
Okay. And then the next part is safety. After that, okay. What do you do for safety?
Okay. So as far as becoming a client, just calling in and saying, I'm not ready to leave, but I do know that I need to talk with an advocate. We have a client advocate, which she focuses more on the women who are inside the shelter. She will help them with the application process for finding employment, for finding housing, applying for Medicaid if that's what they need, or other insurance. If they need help applying for food stamps, she can help them with that. She helps with, the emotional part as well, but she tries to focus on the success while you're in the shelter to getting you to move forward once you're out. And so she is our client advocate, and she does a lot of that. She also will do outreach, and so she can meet a client outside of the shelter. We always try to meet at a public place, and that way we're safe. That way the client doesn't feel like, well, now I have to go to this weird place, and I don't want anyone knowing. And so we try to meet somewhere public, and try to help with those things, even if that person's not ready to actually leave their home. So that's the client advocate for mostly domestic violence. Then we have the child advocate, which she does programs in the schools where she talks about, healthy relationships, and she'll talk about, she does a lot of suicide talking and prevention intervention type of thing. And just healthy living type of topics. And so she will also do in-house work with the children, and then she will also do outreach work with the children as well. So meeting them public, doing activities with them, kind of just helping them get out of their shell and talk about what it is that they've gone through. And then my position is the sexual assault advocate. And so I do the same thing. I meet with the women in the shelter who, it's usually the typical clients that we get are clients who are staying because they've been abused in some way, normally around the domestic violence, part of things. But with my position is I'm allowed to work with clients who have that sexual abuse history. And I think one of the biggest parts of this job, because this is a new position that I've seen, is so many of our clients have that history that they don't realize how much that history still plays a part in their life today. And so we kind of go through that. I don't make anyone talk about anything. It's just if we feel like that's something that they need to address, we have an advocate for it. Awesome. I do outreach as far as for sexual abuse victims. We do support groups, and we also have groups in-house in the evenings for clients to attend that are domestic violence related, sexual abuse related. They'll even do budgeting. They'll do any type of group that if a client says, I really want to learn more about this, they'll do a group like that. So
that's so cool.
Open, very broad.
So that's interesting that as in your position, so if somebody let's say, because abuse, it's everywhere. I mean, every age bracket, every race, and so on and so on. Yeah. So if someone calls up and they are, let's say, in their 70s, and it's man or woman, and they say, look, I remember this as a child, I was molested. Now that's still okay for them to call?
Yes, absolutely. And that's one of, I have a client that's done that. And most of the women that I work with are between their late 40s and up to their late 60s. And that's my biggest age group of women is that age. And a lot of it is, wow, I didn't know that I wasn't the only one who went through this. Wow. Or it's, I've never told anyone. And so now this opportunity for me to talk to somebody, I need that, and it's freeing for them, to carry around that with them their entire life. They need to discuss it. They need to talk about it. And even if I'm not the person for them, I will find somebody for them to talk to. I just went and did a small, educational type thing with the Fozzie Center in DeMont. And I talked to the elderly people there, and I just said, you never know what somebody has experienced, and you never know who you're going to come across who may need to talk about something like that. So abuse does not discriminate.
No, it does not.
So
no, it does not. Definitely. And that's a sad thing. And I think I had mentioned it before that it's almost like an epidemic in our world. And it's so quiet and silent and just across the board. Mm-hmm. It really is. Now, let me ask then, so let's talk about how long can the client stay once they call and they decide to come? Do they get to stay in 30 days, a couple weeks?
With 30 days, they're not required to stay 30 days, but they can stay up to 30 days. So when a client comes in, they can stay for 2 days and say, you know what, I found somewhere to stay, I'm going to stay with my family, or they may find an apartment in the first week that they're there. They're not required to stay, but they are allowed to stay up to 30 days. But the outreach will begin after that. So just because they're moving out and moving forward does not mean that our services have to end. I still have clients that I work with, or we help out with food sometimes, or just different types of referrals, that I've just finished my 5th year at the crisis center, and I still have a client and her family that I work with from year 1. So
Wow.
you never know when somebody's going to need something, and we want the crisis center to be a resource for people, and we want them to use us. So.
Oh, that's awesome. That is amazing, because the healing from this, it could take years, decades to do. So that is amazing and awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. That is so cool. Yay. And speaking of yourself there, so how did you get involved with the crisis center?
My friend at the time worked there, and she was like, oh, we have a job opening. And I had no idea what she did. I always knew that I wanted to work with like children or families who were hurting in some way, but this part of my life wasn't something that I ever thought was going to happen. I was in a very dark place in my own life, and I was like, I can't help somebody else if I can't help myself. So she was like, no, like, you should just apply. Like, I think you would be fine. My mom was like, just do it. Like, you won't be sorry, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, fine, whatever, I'll apply. And I knew once I started, I was like, okay, this is for me. And there's been a lot of ups and downs, but for the most part, it has just really made me grow as a person. It's very humbling to hear the stories that I've heard. It makes me very grateful for the life that I've lived. And it really opens your eyes to just people in general, because everyone hurts in some way. And it really makes you change the way that you look at the world, in good ways and in bad. For the most part, it really helps you to see that everyone has a story. You never know where someone has come from and the things that they've experienced, and you have to be sensitive to that, and you have to be kind. And it's a great place. I love working there. I love my clients. I learn from them probably more than they learn from me. But yeah, it's a great place.
That's awesome. Now, do you ladies there ever need to just like sit back and take a breather? Because I'm sure it could be very intense.
All the time. All the time. And our boss is so great about that. She is one to say, if you need time, you take time. She's very much self-care centered when it comes to this. Like, she knows, from her own experiences, that you have to take care of yourself in order to be able to help others. And so she's always been an advocate for that. She's always been very sensitive to how we feel and how we're handling things, because same with our clients, we all have our own stories and we all have our own triggers. And so we're not in this work because of money or because of, anything fancy. Like, we're doing this job, and all of us are, because we truly love helping people and just like being there for one another as peers, as just another person. And so, yeah, that's always been something that she's been great about doing. And my coworkers are always like, do you need a day? Do you need some time? Because it was a crazy day. So it's, we take it day by day.
Oh, okay. So let's get back to our clients here. So if our client is a little concerned, again, you've addressed the children aspect, but what if they're just scared? So what security measures do you have in force to help protect the clients?
The biggest thing that we always advocate for too is we have an amazing police department, and our city police is amazing, and our county police is amazing, and they are very much advocates for our clients, as much as we've seen anyway. They always call for them if they need them right there on the spot. We've had officers call from the scene to place them. And so they've always been really great and non-judgmental, and they've just been super great about bringing them to us. But with that, when a client does enter, like when they're approved to enter, getting them to the shelter can be sometimes very scary for a person. And so the police department agreed years ago, like a long time ago, that if we can get a person approved, that they will escort them to the shelter to make sure that they're not followed, to make sure that, they get there safely and that they don't get lost or, give up coming because of the fear. And so we have all of our clients go to the police department as long as they're comfortable with that. And then the police will either bring them in their squad car or they will escort them. They'll go in and out wherever they need to go, and they'll lead them to the crisis center eventually, just to make sure that they're safe. And so a lot of people like that because they're like, okay, I'm the officer knows I'm here. Our officers patrol the shelter all the time. If a client has a concern about their abuser, I will say, well, I will call and I'll tell them, and they'll do an extra patrol for a couple of weeks and they'll let us know. There's been times I've gone outside and I've seen a creepy car, and I'm like, I don't know what this is, but they've been hanging out here. They're like, okay, we'll be there. They're there right away. They'll see something and they'll call us. Hey, we saw this. Do you guys know who this is? And we'll be like, oh yeah, it's no big deal, blah, 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 whatever. And we have cameras at the shelter. We have a security system, and we have somebody at the shelter 24/7. So even though the location is confidential, but we are in Rensselaer, so we are very close, for the police to respond if we would need them. And everyone's pretty good about, reporting or making sure that everything's taken care of and safe. So
awesome. And do you guys have the ability to help? Like, let's say I don't have an attorney or I need a protective order. Would you guys be able to walk us through that or refer an attorney?
And our advocates can help do a protective order as well. Okay. Like sometimes it's just talking you through it. It's a lot simpler. The paperwork is than we think. It's just the emotional part of getting through it. But even if us advocates aren't comfortable helping with something like that, our director is an attorney and she will help as much as she can for victims to, even if it's filing for a divorce, if they have some sort of legal thing going on that's related to their abuse, she can give legal advice and just kind of help you through whatever it is that you're struggling with, that she will kind of do an assessment with you and see what it is that she can help with. And so she's very good about doing that.
And also safety planning there. Do you have somebody that would be able to walk through a safety plan if they're not ready to leave yet, but they want to know what steps they should take?
Yep. They can do that over the phone before they even enter. They can do it once they get there. We actually have in our files, it says safety plan. We have like a list, like a little checklist, and it says safety plan given to client in the first 72 hours of their stay. So we make it part of their entry is in that first 72 hours that they're there, we want a safety plan done for when they leave, even if they're just going to Walmart. What are you going to do if you see them?
Right.
We'll do if you decide to go back, because a lot of people go back. We don't judge that. We don't keep them from going back. Yeah.
That's me.
So we tell them, you are your own person. You never know what kind of situation you may be in. So let's plan for everything. And if they ever want to change their plan, they can change it. That's one of the things that our client advocate does with them. And then we do that again when they exit. And that's for any person who stays there. Even if you're a homeless woman staying there, they'll do a safety plan too.
Okay. And is there maybe, because I know as myself, when I went to a shelter, I had no job. I was worried about money. You mentioned financial too. Yeah. So is there like a job search or something that you can help out if someone needs even housing? Is there some sort of service for that to help somebody along the way?
So what we kind of do is it's more of a referral. We can help with applications. We can help them find employment. We have our eyes peeled all the time, and we text each other all the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just saw that this place was hiring. And then we have like a big board thing that somebody created. And so anytime that our advocate has a job posting somewhere, she sees something available, she puts it there. And then, but it's up to the client. They have to be the one to apply. Like, we can't physically make them do that. And we tell them a lot, the crisis center, what you do here is up to you. We have everything available to you and we can help you, but you also have to put forth the work. And you have to apply and you have to get up and get going and try to find what it is that you're looking for, so that way you can move forward. Because 30 days, it goes by very quickly. So we try our best to really, at least, do 3 job apps a day. If you can do more, do more. If you need help, if you can't do that much, like, let's just talk about it. Let's figure out a good way to help you get where you want to get.
Okay. Oh, that's awesome. That's amazing. And you need that, because I remember being there and just feeling like I was in a fog. I mean, I couldn't think straight. I couldn't plan anything. I was lucky enough to get myself dressed, or feel like getting myself dressed, because I didn't feel like doing crap. And the constant worry was there. And now, is there like a curfew for you folks? I know when I was a guest at another shelter, we're allowed to go out. I think it was like from 6 a.m. until 10 p.m. You had to be back. Is there something similar?
We used to, but anymore, it's kind of like, a respect thing, that we try to have the clients back by at least midnight. And especially depending on the staff working and depending on the client that's staying there. Because not every client that comes in has an abuser who is physically threatening to them. There's so many different types of abuse, and just because you're not physically hurt does not mean that you're not being abused. But if there is somebody in there who is more like high risk, and they do have an abuser who is very physically threatening, we want to make sure that by a certain time the doors are locked, the alarm is set, and we're prepared if something would happen. But that being said, like, it's not firm. And so if a client would leave and be late, just let us know you're going to be late. Just let us know if you're, if it's you, and, so just to kind of be respectful and try to stay on that. And for the most part, clients are very respectful about coming back, or, even just calling and saying, hey, by the way, I'm going to be out past midnight, so I just don't want you to be fearful or something. So.
Right. Well, that's awesome. Okay. Well, that's good. Okay. So also, but you mentioned something too about men. So besides women, abused women, what other types of folks come to the shelter?
We have had abused men come in. We don't have that a lot. And I think that goes just with the whole stereotypical thing. Men, can be abused, and that's a lie. They can. And we've had men in the shelter before. It's not often, but it's not unheard of either. And we also service homeless women and their children. So, and typically what we see anyway, when somebody comes in and they are homeless, they have some sort of, abuse history that needs addressed anyway, which could lead to why they're in the situation that they're in. So, but we try to stay as focused as we can on servicing victims of domestic violence and sexual assault, but we do, service others. So.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. Now, if, let's see, you've answered a great deal of my questions. So if somebody is interested, and they say, well, I want to help you guys, I want to help out, how can I do that? Is it monetary? Do you take donations of items, or can I volunteer time? What do you folks have for that?
All of the above. We always, obviously monetary donations are always great, because we're only funded on grants. And so unless people donate, and if we do fundraisers, that's our only source of income. And the shelter does have a lot of bills. You don't have to pay to stay there. So everything's funded by the work that we do with our clients. That's how we're funded. And we have a lot of really great people who donate all the time. And who give, from their businesses, and who give just because they feel led to do that. But, there's always room for growth. We are a nonprofit, so that is always appreciated. But anyone who is wanting to donate items, we go through that typical household item. So toilet paper, paper towels, dish soap, laundry soap, shampoo, conditioner, things like that. We go through that like crazy. Every woman or every entry that comes in, they get shampoo, conditioner, body wash, razors. If they need feminine products, we give it to them. If they need cotton swabs, like anything that they need, we have it usually to give them. Hairbrushes, hair ties, pillows, sheets, blankets, they get it all. So somebody could come in with the clothes on their back and have everything that they need at the shelter.
Oh.
And if we don't have it, Jasper Junction will help us. They donate to us almost every month, and they will help us figure out what we need to get for them. So it's really great.
And I remember being myself personally having the first time I left, just the clothes on my back, and I was just so blown away and emotional when the gal came with me. It was just an armful of toiletries and underwear. I cried over underwear and socks. Right. It's like, oh my gosh, there's people, ugly crying. As it is, I was emotional, but that was just amazing that people actually did that. And that just really filled my heart so much with love, because I needed that at that time, because I wasn't feeling so very good about myself. So I'm glad that people do that. That is amazing and awesome. That really is. That's wonderful. So if anybody wanted to, do you take volunteers that want to maybe come and help or read or something?
Yep.
As well.
We just have to make sure that volunteers, if they're going to spend any time like directly with clients or be around children, they just have to pass a background check. Okay. But other than that, we've had people come. This community, and this is one of the things, like when I started, it just has blown me away. It's like, we'll be talking in the office and we'll say, man, we're getting low on toilet paper. And all of a sudden, one of the churches is calling. They're like, it's weird. We got all the toilet paper in. And we're like, okay. But we have churches that their groups will come, and we had somebody fix, some stuff outside. And we've had people just come and, do yard work just because they wanted to help. And so things like that, it's just usually pretty easy in and out. But if someone's doing actual work with the client, like if they want to teach them how to cook a meal, if they want to do an activity with the kids, they just would have to pass a background check. But yeah, we're always open to that. We don't have any volunteers right now who are in there all the time. And that's something that we would like to see grow, because, we want people involved. We need it.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Oh my goodness. So what advice would you give to somebody that's struggling maybe with making that call to you, to the shelter there?
It's normal to be scared, and it's okay to feel scared. But once you're able to just make that call, you'll be surprised at how good it feels to understand, like, I'm not alone. This is possible, because I think when you're in your own head and you're living it every day, you have this one-track mind, because that's what you've been made to feel. And so once you make that call and you're able to talk to somebody who's like, you know what, everything you're feeling is okay. It's okay to feel scared. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's okay, to not want to leave for all of these reasons. And it's just to feel supported is what's the biggest part. Just call.
Yes.
It'll be so good. Just call.
I do have a question for you, so hold on. I'm going to throw that on. So, Ms. Lillian, do you help them get employed?
Yeah, we can.
Mention that.
Yeah. Yeah, if we can help them find a job, we will. And sometimes with housing, and it all just depends. This isn't a permanent thing, but sometimes, depending on where the person applies, they'll push them up a little bit on the list. Okay. But we can't guarantee that. It's just sometimes people will say, you know what, I understand your situation. Let me see what I can work out. But we can't make anyone do anything that they don't want to do. But we'll help them as much as we can.
Right. Awesome. I really love this. I really do, because, it's near and dear to my heart, especially since I was a guest at a shelter. So, and I wanted to kind of shed light on this, and you and I talked about that, because there's such a stigma with that. And I think it's important that people know that you're available in our area. So I plan again hitting other ones throughout the country here and maybe abroad. And I know we're going to wrap up. If anybody has any more questions for you, they'll leave them there. But I just want to note too, I'm going to start collecting bed sheets for the crisis center. And this, I know you're probably scratching your head. Okay, bed sheets, what's the big deal? For rape victims, seeing that bed, seeing those sheets on that bed after you've been assaulted can be very traumatic. And the last thing you might want to do is even see those sheets. So I'd like to go ahead and just put that out there. I'll be collecting sheets any size that you would like to give to me. Send me a message privately. I can go ahead and send that to the shelter, or you can also send them to the shelter. Just give them a call. The 800 numbers right there on the screen. So that I'm just putting out there. What is the next event that you have coming up? I know it's April Sexual Awareness, Sexual Assault Awareness.
Yes, April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And then my coworker actually told me today, she was like, oh, and it's Child Abuse Awareness Month too. So she's going to do a little bit. I'm going to be doing some stuff. I know specifically I'm going to work with our local SART team, which is Sexual Assault Response Team. So it's like other members of the community who work in a professional field, like our new prosecutor, people from the hospital. We have our sheriff and our new chief. And so everyone's on that team to make sure that we can do whatever we can to help victims when they've been hurt. And so the thing with the sheet thing is a lot of those people are assaulted by somebody that they know, and it's not usually in some strange place. It's not by some crazy person. That happens. But a lot of times it's by somebody that they know or someone that they're in a relationship with. And so that whole part of it, it's something so small to someone who hasn't experienced that, but to a person who has, that's a huge thing. And so I think that they'll really appreciate that. And even just women at the shelter, I'm sure could use them as well.
Yes.
So
exactly. The last thing I wanted to see was my bed. I had someone ask me, why did you just take the furniture? Why didn't you take the bed? It's like,
right.
No, too many memories. I can't. Yeah. I can't. Yes. Oh my goodness. So we're going to wrap it up, hon. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I mean, I'm always open for questions. Like, we're just people working there. Like, it's not as scary as it seems, which, I mean, everyone has every right to feel scared. I can't imagine what that feels like, but we're always just a phone call away. We can meet you. There's no pressure. Everything is confidential, so nothing gets shared past the shelter. All of our staff signs a confidentiality form. We don't share anything with anyone, even law enforcement, and no one. It goes to no one other than just our staff. So
excellent. All right. Well, thank you, Shayla, for your time. I really appreciate that. We're going to go ahead and sign off right now. And I just thank you for those that have watched this. And please share, because it's a very important message to get on out there, not only for our community, but just for the entire nation and going out even abroad. So please share. I'd appreciate that. And again, the Rural Crisis Center number for the North Central Indiana area is right there on the screen, but there are other shelters. DomesticShelter.org, I believe, is one where you could find it throughout the U.S. So please use that website as well. If you have any other questions or concerns, message me privately, or I can give you the information for Shayla if you need that to talk to her, to reach out. She'd be happy to. So thank you all for listening. I appreciate it. Bye-bye, and have a great day and be safe.
Thanks.